like this in his heart, the monster race martial artist wrist shook slightly, and the long whip that was originally thrown at Xianxia also deflected, hitting the void, and there was a crisp sound. He couldn't figure out the depth of Xianxia, so he didn't dare to make troubles, but on the other side, the face of Lord Mitn have to be maintained. After all, even so many powerful monster race salute him, but a human race is standing here. It's really offensive. This is a contempt for Mitn and an insult to the monster race as a whole. So for a while, this monster race martial artist was a little at a loss, and he didn't know what to do, so he turned his eyes for help to Mitn. Human race, you are so bold, you dare not kneel when you see this young master? He smiled softly, as if he were harmless, but anyone could hear the contempt in his words. His dignified status and extraordinary strength made him qualified to say such things. This human race is miserable. Many cultivators had this idea in their hearts, and the expressions looking at Xianxia were full of sympathy. But more of it is gloating. Xianxia has attracted the attention of Mitn, so this evil-eyed young master with a very bad reputation may not have the extra energy to pay attention to the beautiful woman in Shining Moon City. Thinking of this, many people actually felt grateful to Xianxia and quietly pressed the head of the pretty woman next to them to prevent her from revealing her full face. Kneel? Xianxia chuckled, and collided with Mitn's sight without fear. Why? A monster race, actually boasting, shamelessly wanting him to kneel. Xianxia was amused by his frantic words. To be honest, he didn't want to cause trouble on this monster emperor star. If Mitn didn't see him, then this matter would have passed. No one will say anything. But now, the conflict seems to be somewhat inevitable, and Xianxia naturally wants to rise up to meet him. Just because you are a human race. He gave a sneer, still full of imposing manner. Human race must kneel down when they see this young master. As if feeling his anger, the two thunderflame flying lizards pulling the cart also became frantic and turned their heads. They cast their gaze to the location where Xianxia was. Hot air sprayed from their nostrils, and the beast pupils emitted a bloodthirsty and cruel light. The complexion of the people around Xianxia changed drastically. Without hesitation, they scattered one after another, and never dared to stay with Xianxia anymore, for fear that the fire will affect the pond fish. In an instant, with Xianxia as the center, within a radius of more than 10 meters, he was the only one left. Xianxia became more and more conspicuous. Human race, on Monster Emperor Star, you better not be so presumptuous. Otherwise, you will pay a heavy price. Mitn looked at Xianxia with an indifferent expression, and even rushed to Xianxia with the two stunning women beside him. Staring, it seems that Xianxia is a very rude person. Monster Emperor Star is the territory of my monster race. You are a human race, well. It's better to be a human race with your tail clamped obediently. This young master is not a stingy person. Thinking this is your first offense, I can treat it as if I didn't see it. Kneel down, the young master will not play around with you. He stretched out a finger, and nodded his head. If I don't, Xianxia's eyes flashed cold, and he looked at Mitn with a smile. That can't help you. Mitn let out a cold snort. When the words fell, the thunderflame flying lizard on the left suddenly opened its mouth, and a group of flashing arc firelight suddenly formed, directly bombarding Xianxia's side with an amazing aura. Feeling that compelling enthusiasm and the horrific killing hidden in the fire, many cultivators showed a look of shock. Although most of them have heard of the horror of the thunderflame flying lizard, they have not seen it with their own eyes, and today they have opened their eyes. No wonder that the cultivators of the second order void return stage have to flee when they encounter the thunderflame flying lizard. This fire alone cannot be resisted by the ordinary void return stage. A terrifying fireball rushed toward his face, but Xianxia stood there, as if he didn't realize the danger. It wasn't until the fireball came close that he suddenly made a big hand and grabbed it. Looking for death. Many cultivators who saw this scene had such thoughts in their hearts. How could the attack of the thunder flame flying lizard be so easy to resolve? This kid seemed to have some brain abnormalities, and he actually tried to fight with his body. No wonder he dared to rush into MIT. A scene that surprised them appeared. When Xianxia's big hand grabbed the fireball, he was not directly burned to ashes as everyone expected. Instead, the fireball made a soft bang in his hand. An extremely mysterious wave of power was transmitted, and it disappeared in a flash. The horrible fireball turned out to be like a discouraged ball, shrinking at an extremely fast speed, and finally disappeared. Xianxia was unscathed. There was a sound of inhaling cold breath. Miten finally sat up slowly, and pushed aside the woman who was half lying on his lap, sending a message called face up in his eyes. Okay, second order void return stage. He grinned, showing a mouth full of white teeth. No wonder you dare to be so rampant. It turns out that you have some ability. At the moment Xianxia shot, he saw Xianxia's cultivation realm. The second order void return stage is not weak on the Monster Emperor star, not to mention that he is a human race. Monster Emperor star is dominated by monster race. Although the materials are abundant and the word spiritual energy is rich, there are few strong men who can emerge to the void return stage in the human race. Those with this kind of aptitude have long been strangled in the cradle. It is impossible for the monster race to let the human race sit up. They leave the human race to survive in the cracks, but they have fancied the various unique talents of the human race. How can the human race have the opportunity to oppose the guest? Therefore, after realizing that Xianxia is a second-order void return stage, he suddenly became interested, stood on the beast cart, waved his hand, and snorted coldly, "Kill him." The two ninth-order monster beasts immediately raged, stood upright, opened their mouths, and there was flames and lightning jumping in their mouths. There was a riot at the city gate, and most of the cultivators hurriedly fled. Xianxia laughed. Two monster beasts dare to be presumptuous. The golden light flickered, and under Xianxia's control, the two golden blood threads shot at the thunderflame flying lizard like an arrow from the string. Two pillars of fire spurted from the mouth of the thunderflame flying lizard, greeted the golden blood threads, but still could not stop the speed of the golden blood threads. The flame that made anyone changed countenance did not cause any harm to the golden blood thread. In the blink of an eye, the golden blood thread shot into the mouth of the thunderflame flying lizard. The next moment, two ninth-order monster beasts roared a mournful roar. Their huge bodies swayed from side to side, colliding nearby houses to fall apart. The golden blood thread that rushed into their abdomen had been under control of Xianxia, cutting them wantonly in their bodies, causing unimaginable damage to them. Xianxia was not idle either. His figure shook, and the person had already rushed out, and soon came to the thunderflame flying lizard head, and slammed his punch towards the back of its head. It seemed to be a fluttering punch, and it was impossible to see what kind of strength was hidden. But when the fist hit the thunderflame flying lizard's head, everyone could clearly see that the huge monster beast's body was hit, and the head seemed to have been hit by a sledgehammer. Then it fell like a meteor crashing to the ground. The earth is shaking. A big hole immediately appeared on the ground, and thunderflame flying lizard's head plunged into it. It is worthy of a ninth-order monster beast. Although there was a golden blood thread in its body, it was hit by Xianxia on the back of its head. However, it still did not die, but it aroused more fierceness. During the roar, the large fleshy wings stirred up. Want to get rid of Xianxia from it. Xianxia turned around and came directly to the front of the thunderflame flying lizard, with his feet on its lower jaw, his hands holding the sky, holding up the upper chin of the thunderflame flying lizard that wanted to bite. What is he doing? The onlookers were all stunned, looking at Xianxia in shock. He assumed this posture, as if he was about to tear this ninth-order monster beast alive, but the small human body formed a strong contrast with the big mouth of the thunderflame flying lizard. It seems that the thunderflame flying lizard can wrap this human in its abdomen with just one bite. Xianxia's body was bent into a shrimp-like shape, and the exposed muscles were raised high, as if containing unimaginable power. He and thunderflame flying lizard are colliding and competing in power. Everyone thought Xianxia was crazy. As everyone knows, in terms of strength the monster race has an unimaginable advantage by nature, not to mention the huge ninth-order monster beast like the thunder flame flying lizard, especially its bite force, is even more amazing. Xianxia took the initiative to get to this monster's mouth, simply challenging the most powerful and tough body part of the thunder flame flying lizard. Is this guy's head abnormal? Many people have this idea in their hearts. But the result made them stare, and it turned out so quickly. At the moment when they suspected that Xianxia had some mental problems, his originally bent into a shrimp-like body suddenly straightened. With the amount of violence that can penetrate the entire star field, the big mouth of the thunderflame flying lizard cannot prevent Xianxia from stretching it. The huge mouth showed an exaggerated bouncing arc, the upper jaw flew up suddenly, and the lower jaw fell down. Thorn. With blood in the sky, the thunder flame flying lizard's head split completely, and the muscles and tendons on that head were pulled by a powerful force, all torn apart and exposed to everyone's vision. The audience was sluggish, and they all looked at Xianxia with a strange look, as if their heads couldn't turn around for a while. If someone says that Xianxia is a strong monster race known for his strength, then there is a reasonable explanation for this scene, but he is just a human race. Can a human race have this kind of terrifying power? Boom! With a sound, the huge body of the thunder flame flying lizard fell to the ground, splashing a cloud of dust. Xianxia stood bloody in the air, full of murderous aura, like a god of death from ancient times, making people shudder. He turned his head and looked at the other thunder flame flying lizard who was rushing towards him, grinning. Although the thunder flame flying lizard did not incarnate with human body, it still gave birth to a certain amount of spiritual wisdom. When it saw that its companion was killed by the human race in an incredible way, how could it dare to come closer? There was a low growl from its throat, its wings violently incited, and it wanted to stop. To be continued.